Is a six-star owner part of a Pandora's box? We'll try and find out this week on Motoring 2001.
TSN's Motoring 2001 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.
You know, as Mick Jagger sang many years ago, you can't always get what you want, but if you try real hard, you might get what you need. Well, for many years, that could have been the theme song for Subaru dealers across North America. They have always wanted six-cylinder engines, but the boys in Japan have always said, all you really need is 4 cylinders and all-wheel drive. And who could argue with that logic, as sales over the past 5 years have more than tripled for Subaru. But having looked at the competition, the engineers have come up with a new engine, and it does have 6 cylinders. And this week we get our first peek at the new H6, and we ask the question, do Subaru owners dance to the beat of a different drummer? Well, this is it, just out of the box. Subaru's first 6-cylinder since the discontinued SVX, and it's affectionately called the Boxer engine.
I've often been asked about where the Boxer name comes from for the horizontally opposed engine. It's very simple. You know, Boxer pistons go up horizontally and go like this, basically mimicking the fist of the Boxer coming out. Well, the horizontally opposed engine basically means that the configuration of the pistons are flat. So the engine is lower, it's flatter, and what that does, it gives a better center of gravity, keeping the moving parts, everything is nice and low. The pistons, being horizontally opposed, move in horizontal plane, meaning that they go opposite each other. What's nice about that is that when the pistons are going in opposite directions, they're actually balancing each other out, so you don't need extra balance shafts or anything to keep the thing from vibrating. It's a perfectly balanced, especially the 6 cylinders, a perfectly balanced engine inherently, so it doesn't need anything else. The beauty of a flat engine also is that the crankshaft is very, very short. This is the length of the engine. And so being in a Subaru, we keep that in front of the wheels. And so therefore, having a very short engine means very little mass ahead of the wheels, giving you excellent handling.
I think it's a logical next step for Subaru to move to a little more power, a little more engine. The customers have been asking for it. The journalists have been asking for it. And we think it's just a logical next step. And with some of the technology that we're putting into cars, it's just the way we got to go. In '95, we were selling about 4,000 cars across the country. This year, we expect to be close to 16,000 cars. So pretty good growth. The 6 is very fuel efficient. It is only requiring about, I think, about 2% more fuel than the 4, which is pretty good.
Well, the VDC stands for Vehicle Dynamic Control. Basically, cars, when cars go out of control, they do 2 things. They either go oversteer, meaning that the back end of the car comes around, or understeer, meaning the car plows into a corner. With the VDC on, basically, as you're going to lose control, the system will slow down the engine, break down the car, slow down the car, and get you back in control. Nobody could lose it with the VDC on, but a couple of guys did some really nice donuts 360s and stuff without it, I think.
Okay, so Subaru now has a 6, and the consensus here is they've nailed it. The engine is sweet, the ride is terrific, the Outback is simply a more improved vehicle. Yet, sport utilities are still king of the hill. So are Subaru owners just different?
I think of them as people who are kind of members of a secret society. You know, they're all in on something, and they probably don't talk that much about it to other people, outsiders. You follow me? Mm-hmm. Because Subaru is not a brand that up to now has had a whole lot of bragging rights associated with it. So I think people who buy them tend to know them, come to know them at least. They probably buy them in the first place because somehow they've got the idea that they are safer. Then they find out the other sides of the car that make them all the more attractive. That is their ability to go at high speeds very quietly and comfortably.
Well, the one thing that I've noticed about Subarus is the worse the roads, the worse the weather in a particular region, the more Subarus you see. You go to Colorado, you see tons of Subarus. You go to Toronto, there's fewer of them. I've got to think they're more pragmatic and more practical people, and they're not swayed by as much fashion consciousness as the traditional SUV buyers. I mean, an Outback is definitely something different than a regular wagon, but it's not a full boat thing, and it's much more practical than a regular SUV.
This six-cylinder too might help their image. Is that what people are buying today too?
I think it'll definitely help their image. Yes, no question. Whether it's everything they say it is, I'm not so sure. I think it's lacking a little in low-speed torque that people associate with V6 motors. But it's a lovely, lovely motor on the highway, as are the 4s, I have to say.
I believe they do need an image. I mean, they've been trying to move up scale for quite some time now, and they've been pricing their cars accordingly. But unfortunately, they've only offered a 4-cylinder engine. With a 6 at least available, though not in big supply, they'll at least have something that says we've arrived in this upper echelon.
We've sold some cars already. They haven't seen them, they haven't seen the price, but they've sold them already. This is a good sign. You know, there's something that really makes me see red. That's coming up later on Kenzie's Corner.
You know that old plate on the gate? It should perhaps read "Gone Cruising." On this edition of Test Drive, we take Chrysler's PT and run it through its paces. Power for the PT comes from a 2.4-litre twin cam that produces an even 150 horses and 162 pounds-feet of torque. Now you compare this lump with either a 5-speed manual box or a 4-speed automatic, both of which work with the engine for the most part. The manual makes the most of the engine, the automatic is more suited to around-town driving. You know, all of that explained, the engine on this PT Cruiser is somewhat like a bad morning person. It just doesn't like to get up and get out of bed until it hits 3,500 RPM. However, once you've managed to get it out of bed and coaxed it through that point on the rev range, the performance is acceptable. The laughable part in all of this is that Chrysler include a low-speed traction control system along with the anti-lock brakes on the limited edition. The four-wheel discs deliver short stops and a pedal feel that's firm and reassuring. Suspension comes from McPherson struts up front and a twist beam axle in back, with roll bars at both ends. Now if you opt for the limited tested, you also get a touring suspension which keeps the whole lot manageable. Through the pylons, the PT proved to be fairly adept, with understeer only appearing at the limit. Much of the credit goes to the up-level 205 55R16 tyres. These things add to the speed of the steering's response as well as the reassuring demeanour. From the ride side, things are comfortable and compliant, with most of the sting being effectively removed from road imperfections. You know, the PT Cruiser is almost as funky inside as it is outside. The center console places all of the major controls right at your fingertips, and across in front of the driver there's a great set of white-face gauges that display the information very well. The only weird part, you've got to go back to the center console to find the power window switches. They should sit on the door. Now if you happen to go with the limited edition version, you get a couple of other extras. First of all, the seats are leather and include side airbags. You also get plenty of headroom. The only anomaly is that you feel as though you sit on the PT Cruiser as opposed to in it. Now running through the pylons, that gives rise to a sensation of a lot more body roll than there really is. In reality, well, the PT is surprisingly nimble.
While shorter than a Neon, the PT actually boasts an inordinate amount of room, rivaling that offered in most full-size sedans. Remove the rear seat and you have a whopping 64 cubic feet of cargo space.
You know, if you're looking for versatile, the PT Cruiser, well, it's got it in spades. The seats, normal position, they tumble forward, you can remove them, but they also fold flat. Then you take the parcel shelf and install it in one of its 5 positions, just like that. Fold the front seat forward, you've now got a flat cargo floor that will accommodate a ladder. But that's not its party piece at all. The real party piece comes in the form, you hook it in here, unlatch this leg, you've now got a tailgate table. Anyone for a martini? From a safety standpoint, the PT delivers the aforementioned side airbags and a pair of second-generation front bags. Add to that a structure that is, in spite of its wide-open design, strong, and things shape up as being better than average. You know, the PT Cruiser is a welcome addition to Canadian roads because it harks back to the old days of the hot rod. It's just too bad that it doesn't have the power of a hot rod. Anyway, that aside, this thing, if it comes to versatility and practicality, and that's what you need, this vehicle, well, it's as good as anything I've ever tested.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns a frequently asked question, whether you trade in or hang on to a high mileage vehicle. We've got an email here from Bruce Tamaki in Kelowna, BC. He says he's got an 89 Toyota V6 4Runner. He says I've babied it and still runs like the day I drove it off the lot. Now has 200,000 kilometers on it. My question is, should I think about replacing this auto for a $500 a month payment or keep doing the regular maintenance that I've been doing for the past 11 years? All the books and financial gurus say to hold on to an auto for 5 years and buy used. No one ever expects someone to hold on to a vehicle as long as I have. Seems like everyone I talk to swings both ways on this topic. Well, Bruce, here's how I stand on it. First of all, you bought a quality vehicle. Toyota vehicles, especially their light trucks, are known for build quality and ease of maintenance. You bought the right stuff to start with, you looked after it, and you say it's still running well and you've babied it and done the maintenance. No reason to get rid of it. It's not going to bring you very much as a trade-in with 200,000 kilometers because a lot of people think it's shot then. To me, in my books, it isn't. Matter of fact, I just had to replace my pickup truck about 9 months ago. I bought a used one, that blue one that you see in the background, and it's got 317,000 kilometers on it. Had 305 on it when I bought it, and it still runs like new because the guy before me looked after it, drove it right, he bought quality equipment, and he serviced it when he should have. There's still a lot of life left in it. I have a good friend who has a similar vehicle to that, a 1987 model. He's got 615,000 on it, and it's still running like a champ. So if you buy the right stuff, you do the maintenance, you look after it, and don't drive it abusively, there's a lot of life left in it. High mileage is not cause for concern on today's vehicles if they're looked after properly. That's your Midas tip of the week.
It's not my background. My background is to sit in the car and drive, and Todd's background is to pull everything out of the car that can be read from the car and understand all of it. And he's a guy that I want on my team. And we've got another Canadian that was my Indy Lights mechanic in 1990, Len Gauchi, works on my car. And we've got a good group of guys here and the best pit crew, I think, in the business.
This is what you'd call an 1890 concept car. Okay, this is what they thought an automobile was supposed to look like in 1890. It was never built though, it was only sketched up. Here's the original sketch from 1890. This is all we had to go on. That's what they thought an automobile was supposed to look like. Now we found this sketch in a Coronet magazine in 1960, and it was entitled Dumb Ideas from the 1800s. And we ripped this page out and we said, in effect, this one don't look so dumb, we're going to build it. And we talked about it, and we talked about it, and we talked about it for 29 years. In 1990, we went to work. Once we went to work, it only took 12 weeks to build it. 11 weeks were spent on the 2 wheels. Everything else that you see here was created in 7 days. The engine is a John Deere tractor engine. It's hydraulic drive, and I need you people to stand back just a little bit, and we'll give you a little demonstration. It's hydraulic. When we move the stick back, it moves backwards. We move the stick forward, it moves forward. When we turn it to the right, it steers to the right. Turn it to the left, it turns to the left. It's like flying an airplane. And they call it a swing bike. In case you want to do some swinging, you can do some swinging. weighs 3/4 of a ton. It will go 18 miles per hour, and we've driven it 1,500 miles in the 5 years that we've had it. Our favorite thing to do is to take it to convalescent homes and take the old folks for rides around the parking lot.
We're back here in Blainville, Quebec, and just on the outskirts of the Subaru pylons is the movie Champs, being directed by Sylvester Stallone. They've given us strict orders. We can't even shoot or get close to them. We said the feeling is mutual. Anyway, there's definitely one thing missing from this movie, and that's the country's #1 mechanic, Bill Gardiner. How about it, Bill?
Brad, who's this Sylvester? He's a famous cartoon cat or something, wasn't he? Never heard of him. Anyhow, we're here on location. We've taken the Quaker State Garage on location this week. We're at High Park in Toronto to support the Big Brothers, the annual Soapbox Derby. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be blasting down in these racing go-karts minus the engine, using the hill for propulsion. And I just love the name of this event, the Gravity Grand Prix.
1, 2, 3, go!
This is our 34th annual Soapbox Derby here at High Park. Every year we come out here to raise awareness for Big Brothers and let everybody know that we're always looking for Big Brothers. We actually now have women in the program, in our school program, which is 1 hour a week. Bill's been with us forever. He's just been fantastic, and he comes out and races in the celebrity races, which then go over to Centennial Mini Indy next weekend, and they finish off to see who wins the Midas Gold Cup Challenge.
Go!
Any tips you want to give anybody out there that wants to do this kind of racing?
Nope. It's all about steering straight, right? Yeah, it's all about steering straight. And don't look at the person beside you. Concentrate on where you're going. That's probably it.
What's the fastest speed of the day?
40 kilometers.
And do you issue tickets for that?
Yes, they all receive tickets.
And how much are the fines?
There's a set fine for every speed, so they all vary.
I'll get back to work.
I will.
We've got some new cars that we got built for our celebrity and politician races. They're made by Parolin, and they're imported from Italy, and they're just fabulous. And Midas has come up with our sponsorship for them for this year, and we're just so glad to have them. The other cars you'll see here are the Little Brothers Soapbox cars. They've been building them for 3 months. They go through driver's training, they go through safety checks. It's just like the real thing, and they've done a great job.
This year we had 4 racers come out from the Can-Am 3/4 Midget Series that runs in Ontario and upstate New York. They brought their race cars out and signed autographs for the kids and let the kids, the Big Brothers and Little Brothers, look at the cars. The neat thing about these race cars is there's no body work in the way of looking at how this car works. You can turn the steering linkage and see exactly how that steering works. You can see the brake system. You can see the engine and drivetrain in this car. It's all very accessible. So the kids got a kick out of meeting some of the race car drivers, getting their autographs and looking at these cars. So it was pretty neat. And neat thing about these cars is the engine's so accessible. I'll tell you, I wish the cars I worked on had engines that were this easy to get at. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 2001. Did you try pulling yourself?
The following week, Bill was at the go-kart track talking strategy with his co-driver Thomas. They were third in the standings after the Soapbox, hoping for a big race day and a chance at the Midas Cup.
First place winner for 2002 TSN Motoring 2001.
Going to play a little word association game with you here. If I say red light, you immediately think stop. So every brake light in the world is red. Now if I say amber light, you probably think warning, something's about to happen. So the front of every car has turn signals that are amber. Perfect. Except at the back of a lot of cars, the manufacturers still insist on making them red. Why would they do that? A flashing red light doesn't mean turn, it means stop. Now, the wavelength of amber light actually penetrates better. If you've ever driven behind a car making a turn in a fog, the red taillight turn signal, you just can't see it. The amber is much more clear. And let's not forget, too, that the turn signals are also the four-way flashers. In an emergency, you want the people behind you to see that you're stopping. We killed a bunch of people in a fog-bound crash near Windsor, Ontario last year. I'm not saying that amber turn signals would have made any difference, but if there is a difference, why don't the car companies come down on the side of safety? I'm not saying this is the biggest safety issue we've got, but every little bit helps. Now, the engineers I've talked to say most companies don't have a standard for this. It's down to the stylists. Well, if you want style, how about this little Kia? It's got a white segment in the taillight here that glows amber when it's lit up. That looks pretty cool. But you know, for my money, you can't beat what this big old Yukon XL has. That's a big, bright amber segment right there. You can't miss that, daytime, nighttime, fog, or any other condition. Now, the stylists might say, well, we prefer a full red unit back there. If they can show me one customer who refused to buy this truck because they didn't like that amber turn signal, I'll eat my hat, which in my case isn't that big a bet. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, auto journalists are continuing to swim through the pylons here in the new six-cylinder Subarus. And as I mentioned earlier, business is good for this company, but they still only own 1% of the Canadian market. Well, the feeling is that as the price of gas goes up, more and more of you sport utility owners are going to be tempted to peek through the showroom glass of your local Subaru dealer. You might like what you see. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Okay, today we're looking at the Chrysler 300M. This is one of Chrysler's thoroughbred.
No one's trying to sell you a car. It's fully supported by all the manufacturers. 15 years ago we had 2 or 3 manufacturers, and it's gotten to the point where this year, we've got every manufacturer that's got a head office in Canada here today.
TSN's Motoring 2001 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas. Keep a good thing going. Go Midas.